Netflix's new top show, The Watcher, is
A dream home, a nightmare letter, and a silent stalker watching from the shadows.
bringing renewed fascination to a New Jersey home.
The Broaddus family's life was torn apart by someone they never saw,
Crime scene tape and no trespassing signs
but always felt. Who was the Watcher?
now surround 657 Boulevard in Westfield.
Don't miss this chilling real-life mystery
Police are also periodically stopping by to keep people away.
before it finds you too. The letter it all started in June 2014 when Derek and Maria Broaddus had just bought their dream home at 657 Boulevard in Westfield, New Jersey, a beautiful 6-bedroom house in an upscale neighborhood. But their excitement turned to fear, fast. Just days after closing the sale, Derek went to check the mail and found a white envelope. No return address, just written in a bold hand, to the new owner. Inside was a typed letter, polite at first, but then things turned dark. The writer claimed to be watching the house for decades. They knew personal details, like how many children the Broadduses had, and even their names. The letter read, "Do you know the history of the house? I've been put in charge of watching it." And then the final warning, 657 Boulevard is anxious for you to move in. It has been the subject of my family for decades, and as it approaches its 110th birthday, I have been put in charge of watching and waiting for its second coming. Derek was shaken. Who would send this? Was it a prank? Or something more sinister? He contacted the police. The officer read the letter and was stunned. This wasn't just a welcome gone wrong. This was a threat, cloaked in obsession. It was the first of many letters, and it was just the beginning of a nightmare that no one could have imagined. Fear grows after the first letter. Derek and Maria were on edge, but they tried to stay calm. Maybe it was a weird prank, they thought. But then came the second letter, and this time it was worse. The anonymous writer now mentioned their 3 children by name, describing them in detail, what they looked like, where they were playing, even the nicknames their parents used. One line stood out like a knife. "I am pleased to know your children's names now, and the name of the young blood you have brought me." Now the Broadduses were truly terrified. They hadn't even moved into the house yet. How did the Watcher know so much? "Who am I?" the letter teased. "There are hundreds of cars that drive by 657 Boulevard each day. Maybe I am in one." The family stopped bringing their kids to the house. They even canceled moving in altogether. Surveillance cameras were installed. Detectives were assigned. But still, no answers. And then, a third letter arrived. It mocked them for their fear. It seemed to be watching them suffer. "Where have you gone to?" it asked. 657 Boulevard is missing you." With every letter, the feeling grew. This wasn't just about the house. This was personal. Someone wanted them gone. And the Watcher was getting bolder. New clues. As fear tightened its grip, the Broadduses launched their own quiet investigation. If the police couldn't find the Watcher, they'd try themselves. Derek stayed up late at night, creating maps of the neighborhood, noting what neighbors lived where, who could see the porch, who could hear the children's voices. They also hired private investigators, FBI agents, and even a forensic linguist to analyze the letter's phrasing. One clue stood out. The writer used phrases like, "the young blood," and "observing the house's second coming." Words that sounded dated, almost like they were written by someone older. Then came a curious detail. One of the letters mentioned workers painting and moving boxes, things that had happened only hours before the note arrived. That meant the Watcher had to be watching the house in real time. Someone nearby. Attention turned to the neighbors, especially the house directly behind 657 Boulevard, where a recluse lived with adult children, one of whom was known to creep around the neighborhood, but nothing could be proven. The clues felt close, but just out of reach. Every answer led to more questions. And worst of all, the Watcher was still writing, still watching. Suspects with fear turning into obsession, the Broadduses, and even law enforcement. began to focus heavily on who could be behind the letters. And in a neighborhood as quiet and upscale as Westfield, every friendly face started to feel suspicious. One of the first names to surface was Michael Langford, who lived next door. He was eccentric, middle-aged, and lived with his elderly mother. He fit the profile: odd behavior, no job, always home. Even more chilling, his house had a clear view of the porch where the Broaddus children had been playing. Police interviewed him, but Langford denied everything. No evidence, no confession, just more unease. The Broadduses then looked at another possibility: a family jealous of their purchase. Could someone have wanted the house for themselves and been driven mad when they lost it? A handwriting match was attempted, but again, no results. A separate lead pointed to someone who had written threatening emails to another family in town. Could it be the same person? Investigators dug deep, but the trail went cold. Even DNA found on an envelope offered only one detail: it came from a woman. But no match, no identity. The suspect list kept growing, and so did the silence. No proof despite all the suspicion, digging, and expert help. The Broadduses still had no proof, no fingerprints, no footage, no solid witness, just letters and fear. Even the FBI profiler could only guess. They believed the watcher might be someone older, familiar with the neighborhood, and possibly feeling displaced or angry about changes on their street. But guesses weren't enough. Every theory hit a wall. Michael Langford, no physical evidence. The jealous buyer theory, no link to the letters. Even the female DNA found on one envelope didn't match anyone in the database, or the Langford family. Meanwhile, more letters arrived, some even after the Broadduses stopped living there. The watcher kept gloating, writing things like, "You have changed it and made it so fancy. It cries for the past and what used to be in the time when I roamed its halls." Despite multiple investigations, the case stalled. Police couldn't make arrests without solid proof, and neighbors grew tired of the questions. Rumors started to swirl that maybe, just maybe, the Broadduses had sent the letters themselves. A twist no one expected. The truth, still buried, still staring back through the mailbox. Family breaks, the endless fear, sleepless nights, and growing isolation took a toll. What started as a dream home became a prison of paranoia. Derek and Maria Broaddus were emotionally shattered. Their kids couldn't play outside. Maria stopped visiting the house. Derek became obsessed, spending nights hidden in the dark, watching for movement, hoping to catch the watcher in the act. But nothing came, except more letters. Financially, the nightmare grew worse. The Broadduses tried to sell the house, but who would buy a home with a stalker? Buyers backed out once they learned about the letters. The couple even offered to rent it, just to ease the burden. No luck. At one point, they tried a desperate move, applying to tear the house down and build 2 smaller homes. The town rejected the proposal. Even the community turned against them. Rumors spread, maybe they made it all up. Maybe it was a scam. But what kind of scam destroys a family? Derek started seeing a therapist. Maria leaned on her faith. Together, they tried to stay strong for their children. But the pressure was breaking them. Not from inside the housey, but from whoever still watched it. Waiting. Still watching even after the Broadduses gave up living at 657 Boulevard. The letters didn't stop. One final note arrived, mocking them. "You are despised by the house." And the watcher won. The mystery was never solved. The watcher was never caught. No identity. No justice. Just silence. Years later, the house was finally sold at a loss. The new owners, they never reported a single letter. But for the Broaddus family, the trauma never left. They had been watched, stalked, and haunted by someone who remains free, still watching from somewhere in the shadows of 657 Boulevard. Was it a neighbor, a stranger, or something far darker? What would you do if your home turned into a trap? Hit subscribe for more true crime chills. And tell us, do you think the watcher will ever be caught? Don't miss our next video. Inside the mind of the Zodiac Killer. Unsolved and terrifying.